Okay, in this example, they're telling you that 20% of a number is 64. And we have to find 50% of that number. Now what we know is that there's an unknown number, call it x, 20% of it is 64. But how are we going to find 50% of the number if we don't know what the number is? So the first thing we have to do is think about the first part of the question. We've got to do some work with this first part of the question before we can move on to finding 50% of the number. So we know that to answer the second part of the question, to find 50% of it, we need to find 100% of it first, divide it by 2 to find 50%. But how are we going to find 20% to get 100% of the number? Well, we know that 20% is going to be a little bit of 100%, don't we? It's going to be a bit more than 10% and less than 25%. You need to know something very important about 20%. You need to be able to relate fractions to percentages and percentages to fractions. What do you know about 20%? Well, you know that 20% as a fraction is 1/5, and you know that 1/5 of your number is 64. So here we go. There's 100% of your number. You know that 20% of it, which is 1/5, is 64. And then you have to go on to find out what 50% of the original number is. Well, this question now is very easy because you know that 64 is 1/5. You know that if you get another 64 and another 64 and another 64 and another 64, that's 100%. That's your original number. So you do 64 times 5. What's an easy way of doing 64 times 5? Well, 64 times 10 will give you 640. If you divide that by 2, you get 320. So now you know that your original number is 320. And we just want to find 50% of it. So what's 50% of 320? Well, you know that half of 32 is 16, so you know that half of 320 is 160. So if 20% of a number is 64, 50% of that number is 160. And that's how you work out the answer.